Minister, my amendment is to look at trying to provide an enhanced tax relief for job creation in the midland counties that are being directly impacted upon by the cessation of turf cutting. And they're counties Roscommon, East Galway, Longford, Offaly, Westmeath and Laois. And I believe that the Investment Incentive Scheme, or the EII, is probably the scheme that should be looked at. Now, I accept that the current scheme as it stands is a broad scheme covering the whole country, but I do think that we should be looking at making a separate state aid application in terms of these counties, in light of the significant impact that we're facing in terms of employment losses across the midland counties. Effectively, we're looking at a similar decision being made in the midland counties. The equivalent in Dublin would be if Google decided tomorrow morning that it was pulling out lock, stock and barrel out of Dublin. That's the scale of the impact that this is having across the middle of the country. Now, the big difficulty is that if Google tomorrow morning moved out of Dublin, you would have alternative enterprises that would very quickly come in to fill that void. You don't have that across the midland counties. And we see the challenges that are there in terms of bringing foreign direct investment into our region and into the towns across the Midlands. And I honestly believe that the best way that we can support the indigenous economy is to support existing businesses in expanding what they're doing at the moment, and encouraging start-up businesses to locate in our counties. Like, we're facing 2,000 direct job losses in 33 days' time. The PSO will go on the 9th of December in terms of Loughree Power. It will go on the 31st of December in terms of West Offaly power stations. And there are also approximately 2,000 indirect jobs across the midland counties that will be impacted upon as well. And I accept and I welcome the support and investment that's being put in by government, and that is very welcome. I've publicly welcomed that, and I thank you, Minister, for your engagement in terms of that. But the reality is, Minister, that the state is never going to be able to put the type and scale of resources that are needed to compensate for the job losses. Yes, we can provide incentives, we can provide the environment in relation to that, and the fund that's being put in place is very, very welcome in providing that type of seed capital. But the reality is that we need to deliberately encourage private sector investment across those counties. And the only way that we're going to ensure that that investment takes place in our region rather than in the congested Dublin area is if we put some type of an incentive in place. Now, as you know, this region has been accepted as part of the EU cold regions. It is getting a special recognition and designation at European Union level. I know from my own engagement with the Commission and as a member of the Council of Ministers in the past, there is a sympathetic view and approach to the coal regions and the peat region here in Ireland. And I accept that we can't have a major differential in terms of supports in one part of the country or another, but small alterations to the EII that would ensure that an investor looking at where they're going to invest would actually think of the midland counties first, would look at the opportunities for investment and supporting indigenous local businesses first, rather than adding fuel to the economic fire that is happening in Dublin, and can help to provide some of the counterbalance that is needed away from the City of Dublin, the housing and congestion problems that we have, the commuting challenges that we have. And I think we need, within the taxation system, to have an acknowledgement of the challenges that we're facing across the Midlands in replacing the scale of jobs, the number of jobs that we're about to lose directly within Bord na Móna, but also the longer-term impact that that's going to have on existing business, and the need to ensure that we're providing jobs not just for those people that are in Bord na Móna today, but the next generation, and that we can look at some of those young people that have emigrated and migrated from our region that will consider coming back, taking up a job in the region if it became available, or maybe starting their own business. And I think a small alteration to the EII would be very positive. What I'm looking for here is just that we would look at a report. And look, I think a report is needed to look at some type of taxation type supports that would encourage private investment in the Midland Peak counties. And I'm open other than that, but I think it is important that we do have some consideration of a unique taxation approach here. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. And look, can I begin by acknowledging the difficulty that communities and workers are facing now, as we see a profound change in the nature of work and a big change in the level of employment that is available to them. I know it's also a concern of Deputy Burke, as it is of many of your other Oireachtas colleagues who are affected by this. But to be blunt about this, you know I can't make a change that, in tax policy that's geography-based. I can't do it, Deputy. That is geography-based. I can't say that we're going to have...
I can give you plenty of examples in the past where it was done.
Yeah, in the past. Look what happens. You know that I can't say there's going to be a particular tax rate or change available in one group of counties that's not going to be available in others. I simply can't make tax, particularly tax that's relating to the creation of income and employment, county-specific, because every neighbouring county will quickly claim they want the same and they're being penalised as a result of this, and the domino will begin. What we can do is prioritise expenditure, and that is what we are doing. We are prioritising the need for a fair and effective transition for the workers that you represent that are now losing their jobs. And it is far more effective for us to be prioritising the use of resources through expenditure, where we can control it, we can target it. You'll be aware, Deputy, of the thinking that we have, and I'm sure you'll play a part in influencing us in relation to how we're looking to upgrade the energy efficiency of homes in the Midlands, and particularly local authority homes. You'll be aware of the work and the thinking that's underway now regarding what can be done with the peat lands that will no longer be able to be used in the way they have been. You're a former minister, not to mention a public representative for that area. So you'll be aware of the work that's underway that's expenditure related to try to make progress in all of those. And the communities that you represent will play a role in influencing what we are looking to do in those areas. But what I simply can't even pretend that I can do is say that we're going to have tax measures that relate to particular counties. Because I have many other colleagues in the Oireachtas who are representing constituencies that know they're going to have the challenges that you have soon. And I'd be in an untenable position then if we were to make tax policies that are specific to your county, because all of my other Oireachtas colleagues would look for the same for theirs. So understand the need that you have to prioritise kind of investment and change in particular parts of our country and in your part of the country. But I hope you can see the case for this being done through expenditure rather than through tax measures.
Thanks, Minister. And I hear exactly what you're saying. And I accept and I welcome the fact that expenditure is being invested in our region. But we are talking about, as I say, Google leaving Dublin. That's the equivalent of what we're talking about here. And the reality is that while the public expenditure is very welcome, it is not going to deal with the scale of the problem that we're dealing with. not just in terms of the imminent threat, in terms of the economy, but the long-term situation. And all we have to do is to look at what has happened in the valleys in Wales, where it has become a rust bucket there. The same has happened in the United States, and you've seen the political impact of that in terms of the coal areas in the United States. You could see from your own colleagues at the Council of Ministers the political challenges that are being faced right across Europe in the coal regions in dealing with this issue. And we have an opportunity here in Ireland to lead by example, to show how we can actually provide that just transition. But to do that, Minister, and I think all of us accept that we need to stimulate private sector investment across those counties as well. We cannot solely rely on public sector expenditure in those areas to protect the scale of jobs that we're looking at that are going to be impacted upon. What we need to do is to drive innovation. We need to support the growth and employment in local small businesses. And what I'm asking for here is that we would look at a report to see how we could provide some innovative support. Absolutely, I don't want a situation where we are taking, for argument's sake, funding or investment away from North Tipperary and bringing it into County Offaly. And that's not my intention here. I'm not talking about a major differential in relation to it. But the reality is, in relation to the employment investment incentive at the moment, this is applying to the City of Dublin, where we need to calm the economy down, not add to the problems that are there in terms of congestion, in terms of housing, in terms of office accommodation, in terms of water now. Even the Dublin area is experiencing what we experienced for 6 years on the trot, without any break in terms of water quality. And those infrastructure challenges that are there in Dublin, we don't have those, or we don't have them to the scale in the Midlands. We do require investors that are looking at putting investment in. We need them to look to the Midlands first. And what I'm talking about is putting or nuancing that support that would ask and ensure that people would consider that first. And I don't think I'm being unfair in asking for a report to be considered to look at the potential options that are there. It did happen in the past, yes, and I accept that there were mistakes made in the past, but there were some very good decisions made as well. I think of, very close to us here, the Financial Services Centre in Dublin that was established. The IFSC was established on that very same basis of geography. So I don't think we should be throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, and I would ask you to reconsider this amendment in advance of report stage.
Deputy, there's no point my being dishonest with you and committing to doing a report on something that I'm not going to do. I'm not going to be dishonest to either you or to the committee in relation to that. If I make a tax change for part of our country, you can appreciate that there will be a knock-on effect where other countries are looking, other counties are looking for the same. And even if I wanted to do it, from a state aid point of view, I wouldn't be allowed to make a change on a level below our country. So even if I wanted to do it, which for the reasons I've explained I don't, I would not be able to do it. But that being said, like the analysis that you have and you're putting forward regarding the needs of your counties, I accept your argument. There's little difference with you and I on the analysis. The point that you made earlier on, that this is the effect of Google withdrawing from your counties, but we don't have a Google to replace them with. I accept your argument. But that is the reason why, in the change in carbon pricing that we have made, nearly €1 out of every €3 of new money that would be raised by the higher level of carbon pricing is now being prioritised for the need for transition measures. And the counties that you're referring to are the counties in which we're going to begin this work. And I can't offer a stronger evidence of our commitment to trying to respond back to the needs you are raising than the degree to which we are prioritising the first year of carbon pricing revenue to deal with the issues that you're referring to. And I'd really hope to have the opportunity to visit the affected communities myself, because I believe the first test we will have to pass for carbon pricing is showing that it can have an effect in communities where employment is actually lost as a result of a change in the carbonised nature of our economy. It's one thing helping people deal with the effects of higher carbon pricing. It's another thing helping people deal with the effects on transport. You're representing communities that are losing their jobs. And I think they are the first test we have to cross in how carbon pricing is going to work.
Minister, I'm hearing what you're saying, all right? But the simple question that I have is, how do we incentivise private sector investment to consider investing in this part of the country where we are looking at Google effectively leaving? Now, I think everyone accepts that, look, we have a huge challenge here in our region in trying to stimulate and create employment. And as I say, the public sector investment that's coming in is very welcome, and I don't want to knock that. But if we're going to create long-term sustainable jobs, we can only do that by growing and supporting existing and new businesses in our region. Now, I've put forward a suggestion, and it was put forward in a constructive manner to try and look at how we could get people to focus and look at our region. But how do we do it if we don't do it this way, Minister? Because we all accept that it needs to happen. So how does it happen otherwise?
Through what we're already doing, through the work that's going to happen where a Just Transition Commissioner will be appointed, whose first priority is going to be the communities that you're referring to, through the local structures that are already being put in place, through the local authorities and through the local communities, and through the fact that we have funding that will be used to try to lever private sector adjustment, private sector investment into your economy, into your local economies. I mean, the funding that we are referring to will have a larger effect than any what would be relatively minor changes that we could make in our tax code, which I can't actually do. I can't do what you're looking for under law, under state aid law. So to answer your question, how do we do it in a different way, Deputy? It is through the agencies that we have, through the Just Transition Commissioner, through the Laois, making use of the money that will be prioritised from the proceeds of the higher level of carbon pricing.
Look, I'm not going to dwell on this, Minister, but like your predecessor brought in schemes in relation to Georgian areas of cities to try and rehabilitate those areas. And I think everyone accepted the merits of that at the time. What we're talking is trying to rehabilitate the economy of a region that is about to be wiped out. And I accept that this in itself is not going to have a massive impact in terms of investment. But what it does show, it shows an indication from government that they want to see private sector investment coming into our area, in particular in light of the particular and unique challenges that we are now facing.
Just to very briefly say, Deputy, we actually had an exchange about the Living City Initiative earlier on. Yes. And we were having a discussion actually about the relative lack of drawdown on it. And the Living City Initiative scheme is a very micro, deeply targeted scheme into neighbourhoods in a small number of cities. And while I can completely understand why you might see that analogous to what you are looking for, in level of scale, there's no comparison. We're talking about a very small number of houses whereas you're talking about large communities. So that's why we can do that, but not.
No, but I accept it is a small area, but like the reality is that we can and have in the past introduced specific geographic schemes for cities, for parts of cities, but yet when Google leaves rural Ireland, we can come up with reasons why we can't do it. And I think the point I'm making here is we need, Minister, to have some way to stimulate private sector investment in our region. And look, I'll leave it at that because we're only going round in circles.
Thank you. Section